What's up, everyone, and welcome to Play Hard and Love Big Radio, the official podcast of Spotted Dog Yoga and Sup, based out of Folsom, California. Play Hard and Love Big Radio is dedicated to bringing you the inspirational people and the inspirational stories to help guide you to live a more purposeful and passionate life. My name is Nick Clark, and I'm your host today, and I have a really special guest with me that I'm so excited to share with you. Ross Dahmer, what's up, my man?
How's it going, Nick?
It's so good. It's good to be on the podcast platform with you. I'm so excited for you to share your story, brother.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad to be here.
What would you say is the most exciting part about doing this podcast today?
The most exciting part for me is just, I think being on here. I've never done anything like this before, so it's the first time for me, and just kind of having the opportunity to chat with a buddy of mine and share my story and kind of just let people know what's going on.
Yeah, selfishly for both Ross and I, this is an opportunity for us to catch up, just so that you all get an idea of where we met each other. Ross and I have just recently become friends. I started doing some archery this last year. Ross has been doing it for how many years now?
This was my fourth year.
For his fourth year, got it. And so Ross and I had met a couple different times through Katie's cousins, and then started doing some archery. And then this last September, we had the awesome opportunity to go hunting together, and that was killer, man. That was such an awesome experience.
It was so fun, dude. It was so good to get out there hunting with you, and yeah, that was such a good time.
Yeah, it was great. Well, what's even more remarkable about you, Ross, is all of the things that you've had to go through to get to a place where you can hunt and do all the things that you want to do in your life, including be an amazing husband and a stay-at-home dad. So let's talk a little bit about your story. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Billings, Montana. So that's where all my family is right now. And, went to high school in Billings, and then after high school, I went to Montana Tech in Butte, Montana for 2 years. And then after that, I transferred to Washington State University in Pullman, got an engineering degree there. Then immediately after that, moved to Boise, got a job in Boise. Yeah, I've been living here ever since. So now it's been, about 12 years or so that I've been here.
When we were camping in our hunting trip, you were telling a little bit about your injury. Tell us a little bit about your injury.
Yeah, so it was quite the experience, that's for sure. So on August 2nd, 2019, I was actually on a golf trip with some buddies up in Coeur d'Alene. We were just out there having a good time. I was playing real good golfing, and after one of our rounds, we decided we were sitting at the hotel, and we were like, oh, what do we want to do? And we decided we're like, oh, we're going to go to the pool, swim for a little bit, and then just go get some food, figure out what to do after that. We had to golf the next day, so we were like not doing too much, but we get to this pool. I remember just like walking in the pool. I was just like excited to go for a nice swim. It's such a beautiful area. It was a beautiful golf course and everything. And get in the gate and just look over and toss my towel on the beach chair right there and just look in. And I was like, oh, this looks great, and just dove right in the pool and didn't realize that, it was 4 feet deep. So I just dove right in the pool and immediately hit the top of my head on the bottom of the pool. And right when I hit, just like everything shut off below my shoulders. It was like a light switch, dude. It was just like flipped everything off, and like I couldn't feel or move anything below my shoulders at all. And it was crazy because like as soon as my head hit the bottom and everything shut off, like I knew immediately what I had done, because like my mom, I got a bunch of medical professionals in my family. So like my mom's a doctor growing up, and she was just like a safety freak about everything. So like from that, I kind of knew a lot of weird dangers and stuff. And so like immediately I was just like, and I'm still like on the bottom of the pool. I was like, I just like broke my neck, and now I have a spinal cord injury, and I'm going to be paralyzed for life. That was my thoughts, like at the bottom of the pool, like before I even floated up or did anything. And yeah, man, it was crazy. Like, people say when when you go through something like that, like time kind of slows down. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened. Like everything slowed down, and as I'm, floating to the top of the pool, can't move or feel anything below my shoulders, I'm just like thinking to myself, well, man, what did I do to myself? How is my life going to be different? Now I'm not going to be able to do all of the things that I love doing. I'm not going to be able to go fishing. I'm not going to be able to play the sports that I want to play. What did I do to my family? Like I said, everything was slowed down, and I'm having all these thoughts as I'm floating to the top of the pool. And I get to the top, and I can't move anything, so I'm like laying face down in the pool, and I can't move to like roll myself over or anything. So all I can do is just like shake my head back and forth to try and get some people's attention, because there wasn't that many people at the pool. It was just me, a handful of buddies of mine, and a few other people. And I will say, like, I didn't know many people on this trip. It was one of my best friends who lives in Texas and a bunch of his friends that live in Texas. So I didn't know them very well. After a while, I was just sitting there shaking my head. My buddy comes over and he flips me over and he's like, Ross, what are you doing? I was like, dude, you need to call an ambulance. Like, I fucked myself up bad. So, and he was just like, what are you talking about? I was like, dude, I'm paralyzed right now. Like, I can't move anything. And like at this point, I'm just like crying, like, trying to grasp the situation. They like pulled me off to the side of the pool and, called an ambulance. And I'm just like laying there trying to figure things out, trying to figure out what's going on. And eventually, the ambulance came, took me away, took me to the Kootenai Health Medical Center in Coeur d'Alene. And honestly, it's weird because everything about the actual portion of me getting injured, like diving into the pool, having all these thoughts, like, thinking I was going to drown in that pool with, in 4 feet of water with, people there, but like not really knowing what's going on, was like all of that is just crazy vivid to me. Like I still relive it from time to time, like, when I'm falling asleep at night and stuff like that. But like after that, like once I'm in the hospital, everything becomes, I don't remember it as vividly. Yeah, I was in the hospital, and then they ended up life flighting me from Coeur d'Alene to Spokane. So I went to Spokane, where a neurosurgeon did a surgery on, what they did was, so I ended up breaking my C2 vertebrae, which is the vertebrae that's immediately below your, like the connection between your spinal cord and your brain. But I didn't have a spinal cord injury at that point, so those like broken pieces of the vertebrae didn't hit the spinal cord at that point. But I also broke C5 and C6, which is just a little bit lower. And one of those, bone fragments kind of impinged on my spinal cord at that point and bruised it. And so that's where my spinal cord injury came in. And so they did a vertebral fusion, where basically they put screws in from C4 vertebrae to C7, and then, rods on the side to kind of stabilize everything and trying to relieve the pressure on my spinal cord. So yeah, they did that in Spokane. And then, yeah, at this point I'm in the hospital, can't move anything below my shoulders, and just kind of trying to figure out what life is going to be like now. Like at that point, my prognosis was that the doctors came in, they were like, well, you're probably not going to walk again. Like you might gain some movement in your legs and arms, but uh, it's probably not going to be as enough to walk again. So that was just kind of what the situation was at that point in time. And I was in Spokane for 12 days, and during those 12 days we were trying to figure out like where's the best place for me to go, because it was going to be a long hospital stay, minimum of 2 months, up to potentially a year, depending on what the complications could be. Like if my breathing wasn't affected to the point where, they need to keep an eye on me for a long while. I was freaked out, like to the core. It was a completely life-changing injury. And so it was all I could do to just like I mean, there was a lot of times like I would have rather been dead. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It was that bad. Like thinking
Yeah.
that I was just gonna be, you know, not able to move or do anything or like, have a family or be productive in my family, be a productive member of society for the rest of my life. Like it was worse than being dead to me at that point in time for like those 12 days that I was in Spokane in that hospital. So I wasn't really able to do anything to kind of bring me back to earth and bring me to reality of like, this is survivable, you can get past this. Like those thoughts weren't really in my head at that time, just because it was such a shock. But I will say the only thing that was keeping me somewhat sane at that point was the support system that I had. And it's like I can't say enough for like how big of a factor support systems are when you go through something like that. My family, my now wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. I mean, without them, I would just been all would have been lost. Without them. So yeah, they were really the only thing that was keeping me halfway there.
Yeah, support systems are so important.
For sure.
People help carry us through really challenging situations. Case in point.
Yeah, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
so you're looking at, okay, where are you going to go for your hospital stay, and so what happens next?
Yeah, we well, and this is where all of the insurance and like fighting insurance comes in because insurance wants to pay the minimum amount of money they possibly can, and so they're like, well, you don't need to go to some state of the art place because there's a place down in Post Falls which is totally good enough and will be sufficient for your recovery. But what we were wanting to do was go to this place called Craig Hospital, which is a world renowned spinal cord injury and traumatic brain injury rehabilitation hospital in Denver. So that's really where we were shooting for. And so at this point in time, that's all we were trying to do was like, how do we get Ross to down to Denver to try and go to this place and see what sort of, if any, recovery he can make. But the logistics of getting someone that's fully paralyzed in a traumatic state from northern Idaho down to Denver is not easy. And so but there are places, companies that basically have, it was kind of like a life flight plane. It's an air ambulance is what it's called. So this company has a kind of like a Learjet that's decked out with all sort of medical devices and situations to get someone in that sort of situation to a different place. So we ended up finding this company, and they loaded me up in their plane and flew me down to Denver after we got all the insurance stuff figured out finally. So I think it was, I think it was 14 days after I initially got hurt that I finally made the trip down to Denver, which was good. But like I really didn't have any expectations at that point in time because I was still trying to just process everything. But it was good to just like get a change of scenery and be doing something different than just sitting in that hospital. And so I ended up going to Craig and immediately could tell that it was a different sort of situation because they knew like exactly what to do. Like everyone else in that hospital was in a terrible situation like me. And where I was, this is like August, and it's actually the worst time because there's so many people end up getting injured in like the summer and stuff. So the hospital was so full of, spinal cord injury and traumatic brain injury patients. They didn't actually have like a room for me at the time. So I had a roommate, another person with a spinal cord injury. So we were kind of doubled up in the room at the time and, waiting for people to move out or whatever so I could have my own room. But so when I got there, I ended up, having a roommate who he was a paraplegic and who just had like a parachuting accident where his parachute didn't open up fully. So he was in there too. And it was just a wild experience being in a place with so many other people like going through the same thing, which, was a sad situation, but also it was good to have someone else that was there, like kind of going through the same thing, that had, was, because there's very few people that can even comprehend what it feels like to just be completely paralyzed and not be able to feel or move anything in your body. So that was a good aspect of it, being able to commiserate with someone else. But anyway, so I had a roommate there for a little while. And I think I had a roommate for, it was like 2 weeks, and then I ended up getting my own room down there. And then at that point, it just began, it just started trying to put the pieces of my life together at that point and moving on, just doing heavy rehab every day as much as I could. I mean, this is like, this sort of rehab that you're doing when you can't move anything is like trying to send a signal from your brain down to your toes or your fingers or anything, just saying like, move your hand, just move your hand, wiggle your finger, do anything. And that's the sort of thing they were like telling you. They're like, all right, we're going to move you around and, try and get like your muscles working and see if there's any sort of connection that can be made from your brain to your other extremities. And that's the kind of rehab that it was done. It was just like, you got to picture yourself, tell your mind to tell your body to move, and just hope that that signal gets there, because that's basically all that can be done at that point in time.
And they're coaching you, I'm guessing, in the rehab aspect, they're coaching you on how to think or to work on sending those signals from your brain to the different parts of your body.
Yeah, they are. They're kind of, saying, here, you gotta actually think about it, because before it was such like a, you take for granted when you can move everything, because you're just like, oh, I want to raise my hand, I'll just raise my hand up, it's like no big deal. But when you
Right.
do that, it's like you actually have to tell yourself to lift a finger and try and almost like visualize that signal going from your brain to that extremity to make those muscles contract and move. But yeah, they're doing absolutely everything for you at this point in time, from rehab to like, because you can't move, so like they got to come, and every 4 hours they got to like roll you over on a different side of you so you don't get bed sores, and then which can lead to an infection, worse things. Going to the bathroom, they have to do everything like that for you. I mean, just literally everything, because you're so helpless, like not being able to do anything at that point in time. So credit to Craig Hospital. It's just, it was such a crazy place because they do such a good job at making a terrible situation be the best possible situation it could be, because their nurses, their like medical assistants, their whole staff is just trained so specifically on trying to make your life as good as possible, like mentally and everything. They're just so upbeat. And so it was a wild place because yeah, they actually like made the situation fun. It's
Wow.
crazy. It's an amazing hospital. It really is.
Well, and they obviously provided an amazing support system, and they were doing a phenomenal job. But did your family, your girlfriend, your wife now, did they move down with you, or are they around you in some way, shape, or form still?
Yeah, so my parents were both retired at the time. They still are. And so my mom and dad, they never left. And Taylor is my wife's name. She was down. I mean, she has a job, so she had to figure that out. And her work at the VA here in Boise was just awesome throughout the whole situation. So she was down there for the first month, I think, and then she had to go back, take care of some things back at home with work and stuff, and then they gave her some more time off, and it actually worked out well because one of my wife's best friends growing up actually lived in Denver at the time, just not that far away from the hospital. So when she would come down for a month, she already had a place to stay. And we have, one of our dogs was only like a year old at the time, so she was actually able to bring my dog down, our dog down, and stay with Abby was her name. So that was really great actually to be able to have, not only Taylor, but our dog down there as well, because that was also just a really nice thing to have. Just because at this point you're like looking for anything that'll give you happiness at all. You're like, oh, I want my dog here, anything at all. So that was really nice. But so yeah, my wife was down there for most of the time, and my parents were down there the whole time. So that was just huge to be able to have them there with me, kind of because they're going through it too. This is a huge thing for them too. It's not just me that's going through it. That their life is all also upended because someone that they love is gone through this whole thing. So like it was just awesome to be able to have them down there too. Just going through it together.
Yeah, they sound like an awesome family, man. You've got an awesome family.
Mhm.
For Okay, so how long are you there? And talk about like the very first movement you were able to make in your body, and what was that like?
Yeah, I ended up being there a total of 4 months, but the first time I was able, and this is like I said, doing the exercises of like getting that signal from my brain down to any extremity at all, and just like focusing on like visualizing that electrical signal, like going from my brain to there. It was like a daily thing, a nightly thing. Like before I go to sleep at night, that's all I would do, was just try and will those signals to get to my extremities. And so and every mornings the nurses would come in and the doctors would come in and they'd be like, all right, wiggle your toes for me, wiggle your toes. A little over a month after I got there, one of the nurses and doctors came in the morning and they're like, all right, wiggle your toe. And I would do it, I would try, but like wasn't really expecting too much. And one of the doctors was like, oh, there's movement, like your toe moved. And I was just like, no shit, no way. So like, I'm looking up because I can lift my neck and stuff. So I'm like lifting my head up to try and look at my toes. And like, they're like, all right, do it again, wiggle your toe. And sure enough, like, my big toe just wiggled a bit back and forth. And it was like the smallest movement, it was just my right big toe just moving back and forth just a little bit. But it's so crazy to think that like the gravity of even that smallest movement in that situation was just like so unbelievable at that time. It was just so powerful. I started crying, everybody in the room started crying, like just like wiggling my one big toe. It was an amazing feeling, honestly. It was just very small but just an amazing feeling. That was a good sign because at that point the doctors knew that it was an incomplete spinal cord injury, which means that basically some of my spinal cord was bruised, and so there was portions of my spinal cord that weren't allowing the signals to get to where they need to go. But it wasn't what they call a complete spinal cord injury, which means that no signals at all were getting from my brain to everywhere else in my body. So that was a good sign. And it really produced a lot of hope at that point in time to be like, all right, I can wiggle my toe, like, what else? And it was at that point that my mindset really changed to where like it was a small amount of hope, and that to some degree the doctors kind of expected you know small things like that to happen. But for me it was a bigger switch in my head to be like, whoa, maybe I can actually pull out of this and like get my life to a point which is like livable. Maybe I can actually do something and still live a happy life and be good with things. So it was a huge moment. It was a huge moment.
Wow. So how quickly did things progress after that moment?
The next thing to happen was maybe like a week later. I was kind of sitting in my wheelchair. I was actually able to move my right leg back and forth, like I could wiggle my knee left and right. And that was also obviously a big moment because it wasn't just like my foot or anything like that. It was like a larger muscle group was getting signals now, and I could move my leg back and forth. And so, and then from that point it kind of just started progressing more quickly. And I couldn't move my fingers or anything at all. Like my arms still weren't being able to do anything. Like I had glasses and contacts at the time. I couldn't put my contacts in, couldn't put my glasses on. But my legs started, moving a little bit. And, through this time, like I'm continuously doing rehab at the hospital. They're trying to get those signals to get to where they need to go. And then I think it was like mid-October, the first time that like I was kind of able to stand on my own. Like it's, I've got three nurses around me around the waist. They're like, all right, try and stand up. And it wasn't much on my own, but it was enough to kind of enter the next stage of hope, to be like, okay, now I'm like, I can see the light of being able to stand on my own at this point in time.
Wow.
So so it was like mid-October where I was like, okay, I can kind of stand on my own. There's signals getting places, things are moving forward. This is keeping on getting better. It's far from a good situation, but it's like it's still moving in the right direction. And so like I'm like, all right, I'm like can still hardly move anything, but I'm lucky because there's a lot of other people in this hospital that came in there fully paralyzed or a paraplegic or with a traumatic brain injury that haven't made any progress at all.
Yeah.
And these people are now my friends, that I talk with every day. We're going to rehab together every day. We're going, we're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner together every day. And you know and so I'm lucky because a lot of these things aren't happening to my friends around me. Like I said, it was just the next stage of hope, being like, okay, I can, things are moving forward, things are progressing, this could be okay. So
I like how you say that, the stages of hope. Man, hope is so important. When people lose hope, it's like that's a scary place to be.
I'm a firm believer, like especially now, especially after having gone through this, of like having hope in like in on the same vein, like positive energy, and like just kind of willing yourself to do what you want to do is, I think, a way bigger aspect of recovery. And not only recovery, but getting the things done in life that you want to do, is just like being positive about it. And like even in the face of adversity, just trying to be like, okay, I'm going to do this no matter what. I've got some hope, I see that it's possible, and I'm going to make it happen. And I'm going to be grateful for the situation, that I have right now, however dire it may be. I'm going to like move forward and I'm going to make the best out of it no matter what. And like hope is kind of the instigator when you're in a situation like that, of those feelings. And so like it was huge for me to be able to go from those stages to be like, okay, now I'm going to be positive. Now I'm going to like, try hard at every single thing I do and work through this and just hope for the best. And if it doesn't turn out, you know, the way I want it to, then, I'm going to make it happen with my life no matter what. I'm just going to be positive about it and, have something good come out of this situation.
Yeah, totally. And I imagine, like, I mean, obviously, we're talking about one instance in your life, but would you say that that's transferred into every aspect of your life since you've moved forward from this?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's, this whole situation has changed me. Yeah, I always think to myself like there was Ross pre 2019, and then
Yeah.
now there's me now. So, and I'm a completely different person in a lot of ways with regards to stuff like that. Like I absolutely try and be positive no matter what the situation is. And it's hard, like, life is hard for, not only me, but everybody. Everybody goes through struggles and tries to just do the best with what they've got. And this situation has made me try and be positive throughout whatever I go through, no matter how hard it is or how easy it is, just like try and make the best of the situation and be positive. And hopefully, I think that will result in a higher likelihood of things happening that you want to happen. So
Well, and I know you, man, you are like all about hunting and fishing and camping. And you still golf too? Do you still golf?
Yeah, I love golf, and it's I used to do, I used to play, rec league softball. I played all sorts of sports in high school growing up. And those sorts of sports I can't do anymore, but the ones that I can do, like, golfing, I can still hunt and fish and stuff like that. So I'm all in on those things now. And what's crazy is I'm actually a better golfer now than I was pre-injury. And it's so weird to think about. And like, I have been practicing a lot, and that might say something for how bad I was prior. But I wasn't terrible, but I'm pretty good now, and because I just can't swing as fast as I did before. And there's good things about slowing your swing speed down when it comes to golfing. There's a little bit more control involved and stuff. So yeah, I golf a lot, and I just try and stay active with as many physical activities as I possibly can, because I just got to keep the body working.
It's been a decent amount of time since you had your injury, and your body's moving really good, man. I saw you crawling through the woods like no other. Where are you in your body, and what are some of the physical limitations that you still have?
Yeah, so I mean, I've I've recovered to as good as I could possibly hope. So I'm just so grateful for the having the opportunity to be able to do what I can do. Having said that, I still have a lot of issues, and I will have issues for the rest of my life. The main ones that I still have right now are my triceps hardly work at all. My right tricep doesn't work. Like, I can't lift my arm off, because my I just that signal is just still not getting from my brain to my tricep. Whereas my left tricep, I can lift it off my arm like that. So my left tricep works better than my right tricep, but neither of them work very good at all. I still have, big issues. My core strength, just because like all of these muscles that I'm talking about have atrophied because they just don't get any work because I just can't get a signal to them to tell them to work. So my core strength is really lacking. Um, a big reason why, like, my chest muscles still don't really work. I think they would probably be better if my triceps worked, but like without triceps and chest, like I just can't do that sort of like bench press motion on a lot of things. So like my max bench press right now is probably like 34 pounds, I think is what it is. So I'm still really weak in a lot of areas. But spinal cord injuries are wild because, it depending on where your injury is at, it really dictates, what muscles can and can't work. So where my muscle is and where the bruise is on my spinal cord allows, my back muscles still work pretty well. My biceps, so pulling motions, work pretty well, but pushing motions don't. As far as my upper body goes, my leg muscles, my quads work pretty good, whereas my hamstrings and my glutes don't work very well. My calf muscles are okay. So as far as like muscle things, that's basically where I'm at. But I still have a lot of other issues. Like, I have nerve pain all over my body all the time, which is it sucks. It's really hard to deal with all the time. So like, on my rib cages, like if I have a drop of rain hit my rib cage, it feels like this little electrical zap on my rib cage. So it's like it's
Oh,
really sensitive. So like anytime I get in water, like I have to wait for the shower to like really warm up, because if I get in there, it hurts. Like it feels like, I'm getting stabbed with little cattle prods on my
damn.
rib cage all the time. My fingers don't work really well. Like, I can't open and close my hands really quickly. I can't type the way I used to, and I have chronic neck pain right here in the back of my neck at C5, C6 that has been there. At this point, I don't think it'll ever go away, but it's, just something. There's so many things that you learn to live with when you go through, an injury, a surgery, anything like that. You kind of just it's really crazy what your body can get used to. Like I have all this pain, from my neck and nerve pain all over everywhere, but like your body kind of just readjusts itself to like this different, you know, state of homeostasis. It's like, okay, here I am now. It kind of like regulates and adjusts its pain tolerance to a point where it's like, well, now it's there, but it's going to be bearable for, for with the help of medication and stuff like that. So yeah,
Is it kind of like if you when you put your attention on it more, does it show up more? Like
absolutely,
now that like we're talking about it right now, do you feel it more in your body because you're talking about it?
totally. Yeah.
Kind of
So
one of
like,
those things. Yeah.
yeah, that's for sure the case. And so, I try and keep, my brain doing different things and not try and focusing on a lot because number one, like you said, it makes it hurt more, or
Yeah.
like at least I notice it more, and it's not productive, so it's like it's there. So I just kind of like, okay, well, I'm just gonna move on with life. It is what it is. So
Yeah.
just get used to it.
You know what? This is kind of interesting, I think, to talk about and be interested in your perspective on it because obviously, when you're talking about it, it brings up, I'm sure it brings up emotions and sensations and whatnot from the experience that you had with your injury. But have you found that sharing your story? Well, let me ask this: do you share your story a lot? And from sharing your story like you are now, do you find some healing in that?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because there's also been a progression with that too. Because, for the first year or two after my injury, I didn't like talking about it. I didn't like thinking about it, but I was kind of forced to think about it because I actually had PTSD from it. Went through treatment and stuff for that. Went through therapy to kind of work through that because I dream about it at night. I'd relive it every time I'd see someone on TV, diving into a pool. Everything would come back to me like I couldn't, like I'd have a physical reaction to watching someone. Even if I saw any pool at all, I'd have like visceral reaction to kind of like, shudder away from it. And so during those stages, I didn't talk about it. I didn't like talking about it at all. It would just bring up, severe emotions where I'd start crying again and just kind of relive the whole situation. So I didn't like talking about it, but time goes on and time's, trying to heal me as I'm moving on with my life. Things have kind of changed, like with the help of therapy. I'd tell the story to, therapists and stuff like that. And I'd talk with other people who've gone through similar situations. I have several friends now in Boise that, are quadriplegics of, varying degrees, or paraplegics of varying degrees, and, kind of talking with them and hearing their stories. And so now it's at the point where, I can tell my story. And I would say that, yeah, it is more of like, on the healing side of things rather than, the kind of a traumatic reliving of the story. So yeah, I would say like now it's at a much better spot, and I do enjoy telling the story, to kind of give people some perspective about what sort of things can happen in life. And so I do like sharing it now. But that's much different than that it used to be, for sure.
Yeah, I imagine that that's transitioned a lot for you, man. I get that. Well, thank you so much for sharing it with us on this
Absolutely, man.
platform, dude. You are so inspiring, man. Oh my goodness. I was getting my ass kicked out there chasing around elk in September. And I remember I'd come back to camp and I'd sit down and I'd just sit right down next to you. And I just was like, heck yeah, this guy is working his tail end off. He's been through so much, and you inspire me to just keep going, man. And
I appreciate it, dude. Yeah, it was a fun time. I was actually broke my record for most miles put in that I ever have, during that week. So man, it was fun to share that with you, dude. It was a really good time.
so good. How many miles did you track? You just tracked it. How many did you do?
Yeah,
Do you
I think
remember?
Eric and I, uh, Nick's cousin, Eric and I think we calculated it was just shy of 20 miles that we put in over the 7 days that we were there. So yeah, man, I'm proud of it. I gotta do it with that forearm crutch. Like I'm hiking around with that forearm crutch everywhere, but man,
Yeah.
it feels so good to do it. And like that's what I love about getting out there hunting and stuff, is because it's we're chasing something down, we're out in the wilderness in the middle of nowhere, just buddies hanging out, going through things together. And you kind of it makes me forget about everything, and it makes you feel alive. And so it's a great time, and it was awesome being out there with you.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. Well, I know you have the greatest job in the world right now. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like being a stay-at-home dad with your daughter,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how things are going with Opal and also with Taylor, your wife? I know you've been with her for a really long time.
Yeah, so we Taylor and I we had Opal on it was September 25th, 2021, so she's 2 and a couple months now. And it's just, it's that is there's things that have come out of going through this situation where I'm like, man, sometimes life is so good that like I don't know whether I would go back and change it, even if I had the power to do that. And one of those things is like having the opportunity to be with my daughter all the time. People just don't get that opportunity very much now, to be able to be a stay-at-home parent, and get to spend, all of the early years with your kid, and just watching them grow up, doing all those fun things, learning to walk, learning to talk, just it's very, I'm very lucky in that regard to be able to have that opportunity. It's been great. I mean, it's been hard because the early times when she was young, babies are hard but fairly easy because they don't go anywhere. They're until they learn to crawl, they're just kind of staying in one spot, which is nice, especially for me because I can't move real well. So I'm like, man, I miss those times. But now, because now she's 2 and some months, and she's all over the place, and she's damn near faster than I am. So she's getting to the point where she can run pretty good, and I can still catch her, but it's getting close now. So, but yeah, it's been super fun, with just kind of going through that, and Taylor, my wife, has just been awesome throughout the whole situation. It's really hard for people who are close with people who are injured badly, and have some degree of paralysis, or some other limitations, whatever they may be. The caregivers in that situation are going through a lot too. So it's been really hard at times, like trying to raise a kid, and trying to navigate injuries and stuff. And on top of that, during this whole situation, my wife was actually diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So like on top of my situation, what I got going on, she's got her own health issues. And so it's been really trying at times. We're managing, we're fighting through, getting things done. Through all the health issues that we got, we're super lucky. We got a healthy young daughter. Just couldn't ask for more with regards to that. We get to spend all this time with her. She's amazing. You know what it's like being a parent. It's so fun. Having all these experiences with your kid, watching them learn and grow. So for me personally, like I feel lucky, having the opportunity to spend all that time with her. So it's been really good, in that sense. So
Yeah, totally, man. And the other thing about it too that becomes more and more apparent for me as my boys get older is that not only am I learning from them, but they are observing and learning from me. And so I've no doubt when I think about you and Taylor and your life and what you've gone through and where you are and what you're doing, I think about the word resilience, and what an amazing gift for your daughter to grow up around two people who are resilient and have a zest for life and are not willing to give up and just continue to provide hope for someone. I think what a neat support system you two are creating for Opal. That's awesome, man. I'm so happy for you guys.
yeah, I appreciate that, man. And I like to think so too, that going through what me and Taylor have gone through provides a unique set of experiences that, and like I said, there was Ross before and Ross after, and Ross after is a much better person. And now that, I know these things, like I can pass them along to her and try and be, more compassionate to other people and other people's situations, whether they have gone through something or not. Cause that's, one thing that I have learned through this is like, you can be going through the worst situation in the world and be mentally in a better place than someone who seemingly has it all, and they can be in a terrible place mentally. So you just like never know what people are going through, on a surface level thing. So, because of that, you got to try and be compassionate and, be loving to every single person you meet, and try to, you know, not be judgmental right off the bat, because you never know what's going on under the surface. And so those are the type of lessons that I have learned from this situation that I surely want to pass along to my daughter, so yeah, I'd like to think so. I like to think that, we kind of are able to provide a unique set of, kind of experiences and things to pass along to her after having gone through this. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
totally, man. Well, and on top of that, what that makes me think of is how everything that you two have gone through and everything you've gone through in particular has led you to a place where you're ready to be of service. And another thing I wanted you to take some time, because I know it's important for you to talk about, is how you're doing some work with the Challenge Athletes Foundation, um, and what's going on with them here in Idaho. It sounds like they've got some pretty awesome stuff going on, and you get in and work with them quite a bit too, which is great.
Yeah, the Challenge Athletes Foundation is a really cool organization that, kind of helps people with disabilities, of varying disabilities, try and get back to, a good spot in life, whether it be, you know, the life they had before doing physical activities, or, if they were born with some sort of disability, getting them into, physical activities to try and get them in a good spot. And so they help out, athletes with all sorts of different disabilities, trying to get them doing things that they want to do. So they're a great organization. And I try and, do as much volunteering as, my time and my ability allows me to do with them. Um, and, a lot of that is, I do a lot of the activities with them, whether it be like, mountain bike races or, ski classes, anything like that. I try and do with them, and, as a participant, as an athlete. But also when I'm there, I try and be like, a positive, person around, to try and, cause there's kids there that have disabilities. And so I want to be there and I want to be positive. I want to, I want to have them, I want to make them happy. I want to make them have a good time. So that's what I try and do. Is a lot of the volunteer that I really do is more being, just a positive person in that space. And, I try and do a lot of that with the Challenge Athletes Foundation, but just in my day-to-day life too. Like if I see someone with, a disability, one of my good friends, um, that is also actually is a quadriplegic that has the same level of injury as I have, a C5, C6. I saw him at a restaurant for the first time, and I saw him in a wheelchair. And, after having gone through this, I can immediately tell when someone has like a similar injuries just by the way they look, the lack of triceps, chest, the way they move their hands and stuff. And so I just walked up to him and I was like, "Hey man, you quadriplegic?" And this is in the middle of the restaurant, and him and his family look up at me and they're like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And I was just like, "Dude, I went through similar thing. Like I'm still got a whole bunch of issues." And he was just like, "Oh yeah." And so he's like, "Yeah, I went to Craig Hospital too." And so he had a similar story to me, and now we're really good friends. So point being, like I try and be positive light to all the people that I meet, particularly with people with disabilities. So um, So yeah, that's just, what I try and do with not only the Challenge Athletes Foundation, but, in my daily life. But yeah, with CAF and CAF Idaho, I really, love the organization. They've done a whole bunch for me. They basically, if there's something I want to do, they will help me make it happen. If I told them I wanted to be a, Paralympian skier or something, I'm probably not going to do that, but they would they would try and make it happen for me. So they're just a great organization. I love them. And so I just want to continue doing things with them because they're just so great, and they help out, people that are in tough situations all the
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, for all you listening, I'll put a link in the show notes for the Challenge Athletes Foundation so y'all can take a look at them and see what they're doing. And if you're inspired, I'm sure there's ways that you can help out with that organization. And then also I'll put a link to Ross's Instagram if you want to reach out to Ross and check in with him, or maybe you know somebody who would want to reach out to Ross and say what's up to him. But yeah, man, I'm so blessed and pumped to have you as a friend. I know we're just in the kind of beginning stages of our friendship, but when you just meet somebody and you get good vibes and you feel good around them, that's how I feel around
totally,
you, Ross. And
right back at
I,
you, buddy.
yeah, man, I sure appreciate you taking your time, your valuable time away from your family and your daughter today to record this podcast and to share your story, because I know that it's going to make it's going to make a difference in a lot of people's lives as it has in mine. So I really appreciate you, man.
Oh, dude, absolutely. Like I said, it's good to know you, man. I feel like I've known you longer. It's crazy what being in the elk woods for 7 days. We hardly knew each other before that. Now I feel like we're really good friends, and we can just use that as a platform to go from there. So I'm looking forward to continue hanging out with you and stuff. And absolutely, I'm glad to be here. Glad to do this. I hope it was entertaining and interesting for the listeners, and hopefully it'll touch some people in a good way. And like you said, if anyone wants to reach out, if you know someone that's going through something with a spinal cord injury, it's a tough thing to go through. I'd be glad to talk to them. So yeah, reach out if you need to. Absolutely.
Right on, man. Anything else you want to say to kind of close it off? Any final thoughts from you, Ross?
No, I guess I guess I will say that, like, kind of, you know touching upon what you and Katie do with spotted dog yoga and stuff like that. I guess I forgot to mention that a huge part of that, for me, was like I couldn't do yoga, at the time, being paralyzed and stuff like that. But one thing was I did a lot of meditation, which is a big part of yoga, and so that was a huge thing for me. And so because of that, I want to get into more of that, and I want to do more yoga. So we need to do that. And, I could learn from you. I don't know much about it, and it'll be a learning experience for both of us with my limitations and stuff. But yeah, we should do some of that together.
Dude, that would be amazing. I would love to do some yoga with you guys. I know even Taylor said she's interested in getting some yoga going
Yeah.
on. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll have to do a yoga party. We'll just come
Let's
over
do
and do
it.
yoga. That'd be fun. Tell me a little bit about the kind of meditation you did. I think actually I remember you saying something about box breathing.
Yeah,
A
I
little bit
would.
of that.
That's one of the things at Craig Hospital that they taught us with the therapy and the meditation classes. Was one of my favorite things to do was the box breathing, where you inhale for 4 seconds, or what I do, inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath, excuse me, for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and kind of just do that over and over. And I kind of do that while trying to focus on the tip of my nose, um, just to, and having my feet firmly on the ground, being grounded. And I try and do that all the time. Like when I have you know a bad mental spell for whatever reason, I do that to kind of bring me back. If I'm having trouble sleeping at night, I do that to bring me back. And it was ended up being a crazy powerful tool that I wasn't really familiar with that sort of those practices before as I am now, and it's been super helpful for me, trying to get my mind back to the place it needs to be. So I still practice that all the time, daily, doing that. So it's been awesome.
Man, that's so cool to hear. Yeah, I can imagine like when you're stuck in a place where you cannot move, how important your breath becomes. Play Hard and Love Big Radio, the official podcast of Spotted Dog Yoga and Sub. We are dedicated to bringing you the inspirational people and inspirational stories so that you can go out and live your most purposeful, passionate life. Ross Dahmer, thank you so much. You have been that for us today, and it's been a blessing having you on our show, my man.
Hey, thanks, Nick. It was good to be here, man. Good talking to you.
You too. I'm looking forward to hearing your responses about this show. So comment and let Ross know how much you love this show, my friends. All right. Talk to you soon, everyone. See you.